I'm Sandra Yates, the head of the McGovern Historical Center, and this brown bag is a brief introduction to the archives and the McGovern Historical Center. I'd like to start off with a showcase, a short 5-minute video. Oops, hold on. And this will focus on our media items, some of our media items that we have within the collection about TMC history.
Spread across 163 acres on the south side of Houston is one of the nation's great medical centers, the Texas Medical Center. Impressive from the air, its sprawling growth is even more amazing when viewed as the doctors and patients see it. Founding father of this haven of help for the sick and suffering was the late Dr. E.W. Bertner. He headed the medical center from its start in 1945 until his death 2 years ago. Today, those who shared his dream are completing the job of building the state's largest medical center. Typical of the new...
All right, now we're ready to try and put the valve in.
Wait a minute. Let me do this.
Now we're sewing the valve, you see. Now we're going to seat the valve.
Yeah, swing it around. It's a bit. I'll have your thumb on it. That's all you
Now, before we started operating, that is, before we removed this valve and put a new one in, his blood pressure was running about 140, 150 systolic over 30 to 40 diastolic. This is because the valve was not functioning. Normally, this diastolic pressure should be in the neighborhood of around 75 to 80, 85. Now you see, we have been monitoring his blood pressure as well as his electrocardiogram and his electroencephalogram all through the operation. And now you can see that his blood pressure is perfectly normal, being around 150 systolic and 80 diastolic. His heart now will be restored to normal, and this patient has the opportunity of returning to a normal.
We have asked Dr. Bertner to tell us first something about cancer right in our own city, our own county and state. Dr. Bertner, when did the MD Anderson Hospital receive its first patient?
On March the 1st, 1944, Mrs. Chase. And since that date, over 400 patients have been registered.
Do you have any cancer figures for our state and county?
Yes, I have. Last year, over 6,000 people died of cancer in Texas. 650 of those died in Harris County.
Would you say that cancer presents a greater problem in the South than in any other part of the country?
Yes, it does. Cancer attacks more people in the South than any other part of the country.
And what about Texas specifically?
In Texas, 3 factors combine to make cancer a serious problem for our citizens. First, the relative great intensity of the sunlight. Second, relatively high instance of exposure to petroleum and other fumes and gases that may contain cancer-producing components. And third factor that makes cancer a serious problem in Texas is the relative long life of our citizens.
Is cancer on the increase, Doctor?
Cancer does seem to be on the increase. It is second only to heart disease and the cause of death.
You know the day's date? What birthday today is?
Friday.
What is it?
Friday.
What's the date, though? I want to see if you're really in touch with us.
The 4th.
4th of what?
April.
That's right. Can you tell us where you are? You remember? Where?
St. Luke.
Where are you? Did you get to see your wife today? Did you see her when she visited? Did you know that Mike is here? What's your other son's name?
Joel.
What is it?
Joel.
And how about the youngest?
Mark.
Hmm?
Marty.
Mary?
Marty.
All right. That's fine. Want the new roll? Too heavy? My phone's too heavy for me. I think that's adequate, don't you? Do your own.
Mr. Lockridge, you were asking earlier about what the future holds. We've seen what is practical for the person who is paralyzed now. There are many people who have no muscles to use at all. What about them? We do not have the answer, but we know what the objectives are. And the objectives are these, that somehow we will be able to synthesize an artificial hand movement for a paralyzed person. We know the dimensions of this problem. We must do many studies of the muscles, of the way muscles work in the body, just as we have had to study breathing in order to learn how to use the respirator. The next room, the vital studies room, will show this.
Okay, so that's a nice little highlight to some of the kinds of collections that we have at the McGovern Historical Center. We are at the MHC for short, and we're the Special Collections Department of the Texas Medical Center Library. We acquire and preserve the records of physicians, healthcare professionals, faculty, and institutions of the TMC, Houston area, and other related medical endeavors. We provide access to historical materials to TMC institutions and researchers around the world, contributing to institutional histories of the TMC, as well as greater contributions to healthcare, health policy, research, and education. The library officially formed this department in 1977. Our mission was to collect historical materials and enhance the rare book collections. The library started the rare book collection in the 1930s when the fellows of the Houston Academy of Medicine purchased a collection of French medical books from the 18th and 19th centuries. It equaled about 275 volumes. Other acquisitions include the rheumatology collection of Dr. Reginald Burbank, who was a New York physician and book collector. We acquired that in 1949, and the Burbank collection has some of our rarest and oldest volumes in the rare book collection. Also in 1949, we acquired the public health collection of Cora and Webb Matting. And in the 50s, the Friends of the Library purchased the 1543 first edition of Vesalius Fabrica, Fabric of the Human Body. It was roughly around 1976, we started actively collecting archival collections under the name Harris County Medical Archives. The department was named in honor of Dr. John P. McGovern, and in 1982, he donated his personal rare book collection. And the McGovern collection is the largest rare book collection that we do have. In 1986, the MHC began soliciting and preserving the personal papers of individuals who worked for the Atomic Bomb Casualty Commission, or ABCC. And later, we've started collecting the radiation effects, which later became the Radiation Effects Research Foundation. And this collection is one of the largest in the world for ABCC and RERF collections, which happens to be the oldest epidemiological study of humankind after the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. In 2001, following the major flood damage of Tropical Storm Allison, the archives and photograph collections were moved to an offsite location at 8272 El Rio Street, also known as the Historical Research Center. 5 things that set archives apart from libraries. Mostly what we have are unpublished works. The raw firsthand information, primary sources like letters, diaries, photographs, committee meetings, artwork, and researchers can create new knowledge and scholarship from the raw firsthand information. The materials in the archive also provide essential evidence about events, existence of individuals, as well as organizations, a lot of bylaws, charters of organizations, and materials that explain how something happened. They're the product of our daily activities. Archives are all of us. Individuals and organizations create and keep information about personal and business activities. So just in your daily life, you're creating your own archive with the records that you create. Every email you send is an archive. And they are unique and one-of-a-kind materials. As archivists, we provide access to collections by arranging, describing materials, and creating finding aids that guide researchers to the information that they seek. A lot of inventories, listing of materials and collections, and we also preserve the materials for future generations, and making sure that they last over the years. And we acquire new collections that fit the mission and collection policy of the McGovern Historical Center, which is basically focused on TMC history, some Houston medicine, and other organizations around the area. We also promote the collections, just as I'm doing now, throughout the community and outreach, telling people that we exist and that we have great materials to share with them. The archives has a large variety of types of materials. The McGovern Center has paper, artifacts, books, photographs, audiovisual materials like film, video, and audio. And increasingly over the years, we're getting more born digital materials like hard drives, floppy diskettes, and optical discs. This image shows a selection of materials out for a tour a few years ago. So on the table, we have journal issues of the Medical World News, also an illustrated publication called Psychiatric Bulletin. And next to those journals, we have it open to an article, and we also show the raw photographs that were used in that article from the Medical World News photograph collection, and also original artwork that was published in the illustrated journal Psych Bulletin. So we like to interconnect the collections and how they all work together to build a narrative. The McGovern Historical Center has 2 locations where we store collections. First, the Historical Research Center, and we also have the Rare Book Room in the Jesse Jones Library Building. And the Rare Book Room houses the John P. McGovern History of Medicine collection, including the works of Sir William Osler, and also the Burbank Fraser collection on arthritis, rheumatism, and gout. The Rare Book Room consists of a reading room with 2 tables, a sitting area, the McGovern Collection book stacks, which is not pictured here, but if you were in the room, it'd be behind you and to the left. And we also have the vault where we store our most valuable items in the collection. The Rare Book Room is open by appointment only. The Historical Research Center, which is located at 8272 El Rio, just south of the Medical Center, is currently open by appointment only with a limit of 2 researchers at a time. The archives are stored at this location along with some rare book collections. This is the reading room. Researchers will request materials beforehand, and MHC staff can bring the boxes into the reading room. So this is the back warehouse area where we keep all of our collections. On the red shelves in the back on the left are our manuscript collections, which are personal papers of physicians, healthcare workers, nurses, and other medical professionals. Actually, on the end corner there with the big labels on the big boxes, that's the Denton Cooley collection, who pioneered heart surgery in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. And on the left are institutional collections such as UT Health, Baylor, Memorial Hospital, and on the closest range of shelves, all those boxes that you see, that's Hermann Hospital Archives, which is one of our biggest institutional collections. You can also see bound volumes. We have also very large framed items in the foreground. Plenty of processing tables, so we will pull the collections off the shelves and start doing our arrangement and description, describing the kinds of materials and the subject matter that they pertain to. We also have large format map drawers where we have architectural drawings, large artwork, maps, and certificates. We have a lot of certificates. And also old equipment and paper cutters, which you always need. Here's a closer look at our manuscript collection section. And this is the early collections that we have that we've acquired from the beginning. Here, so the bound items that we have at the Historical Research Center, we have dissertations, rare books on psychiatry, dentistry, public health, and also we have some journals that relate to the collection, Texas journals and Texas medical journals, and also other dental journals. We also have framed items and artifacts, a lot of quack medicine. In this picture, there's, I don't know if you see my pointer. There's a mechanical laxative thing. What is it called? The colon motor. Yeah, there's little things that help massage your tummy if it's feeling upset. We also have electro therapy items. Yeah, that's a whole nother talk. We have our digital lab, which we have the capabilities to digitize photographs, flat objects on the flatbed scanners, audio cassettes, and video, mostly VHS. We also have a digital forensics station where we can copy and image born digital media, like hard drives, 5¼ floppies, 3½ floppies, optical discs, removable drives, what have you. So the main types of collections that we maintain are rare book collections. We have more than 18,000 rare books within 6 different collections, focusing on medical history, public health, psychiatry, dentistry, and rheumatism. The archival collections, we have the manuscript collections, such as personal papers of faculty, nurses, and other healthcare professionals. Institutional collections, which are organizational records from TMC institutions like UT Health, Hermann Hospital Archives, and the Texas Heart Institute. Texas medical history, we have materials that document the history of medicine in Texas, specifically in Harris County, Houston, and the Texas Medical Center. Reference files are vertical files on TMC and medical history topics that may not be in a collection, or they may supplement information for our collections. Photograph collections, we have amazing photograph collections that provide images of Houston medical history from the 1900s, about 1907 to the present. Digital collections are expanding with more and more images and media available online each year. Again, the Atomic Bomb Casualty Commission. Since 1986, we have preserved those documents. Many of the staff and researchers and professionals that worked at ABCC also were recruited to work in the Texas Medical Center. So that's kind of how we got became to have a relationship and to grow our collection. Radiation effects and events. These collections expand on the ABCC collections, focusing on areas where ionized radiation has affected our world. Collections include materials related to low-dose radiation studies in Chernobyl disaster and nuclear testing in Kazakhstan. Now I'll give you a taste of some notable collections at the MHC. We have so many great collections, but these will give you an idea of the breadth and scope of the historical materials that we have. Probably one of our well-known and most researched collections with scholars traveling from all over the world, especially Japan, to work with the materials of the ABCC collections. It consists of over 30 different collections, mostly personal papers of ABCC staff and physicians. There's a wide variety of materials in the collection. On the left, on the top, that's Max Suzuki, and we have his photograph collection, which is over 800 color slides of his time working at ABCC in Japan in the early 1950s. The cartoon down below is Akio Awa cartoons, which are in the Howard Hamilton papers. Awa doodled during ABCC meetings, department meetings, and afterwards, Dr. Hamilton, which was one of the leaders at ABCC, collected all the cartoons and donated them along with the rest of his personal papers. And they're a fun collection of drawings, I have to say. A lot of dark humor. And at least one folder has been digitized and placed online. And finally, the William Maloney Journal is one of the most important items in the collection. It's a small personal papers of Dr. Maloney that is mostly made up of this one journal. It's a firsthand account of an American physician at ABCC from 1952 to 1954. And in it, he documents the day-to-day stuff as well as the ethical struggles that he went through being a part of this study. And researchers from Japan have cited this journal in order to humanize the ABCC doctors. And the point is that ABCC and the physicians there were not allowed to treat the Japanese people. They were only supposed to study them. And in the journal, he talks about how he grappled with that it was what the Japanese government dictated them to do, but he did struggle with not being able to treat patients. The Medical News is one of my favorite collections. It is a massive collection of photographs from the publication Medical World News, which was published from 1960 to 1994. If you look at any issue of the Medical World News in that period of time and want an image from an article, there's a good chance that we have it in the archive, along with any negative roles that were also taken for that article. As you can see on the right, there are also some editing marks of image selection from a contact sheet. Medical Arts Publishing Foundation was a company started by Arleigh Clark at MD Anderson to create illustrative journals for the general practitioner to start diagnosing simple diagnoses in their practice on cancer. There was a cancer bulletin, heart disease, and here's the psychiatric bulletin cover. We have some of the psychiatric bulletin issues online on our collection site. So a lot of the illustrations that are in these publications, we have the original artwork for that, along with the publishing cropping marks and any other annotations made in the publishing process. The Texas Heart Institute Film Collection, we have over 270 films from the Texas Heart Institute, a lot of Dr. Cooley heart surgeries from the 1950s through the 80s. Here is a series of thumbnails, and it's probably one of the less gruesome series of thumbnails. And what I like about this collection are there's animated graphics that go along with a lot of these things, and it takes you through the process of the different techniques that Dr. Cooley was pioneering in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. The Hermann Hospital Archives is a very robust collection. It dates back to the George Hermann estate when he died in the 1910s, and also goes through the establishment of the first hospital in what is now the Texas Medical Center. We have the School of Nursing yearbooks and other documents. Here we have a picture from the 1948 graduating class. There's also from 1929, that's the Hermann Park Aviary. And we also have images of life flight, and down below is circa 70s or 80s. The Arleigh Clark MD papers is one of our largest collections at over 800 boxes. This sample of images does not do it justice. It is a huge collection. And Arleigh Clark was the visionary behind MD Anderson Cancer Center. And his papers document his recruitment to head MD Anderson, as well as his leadership, making it one of the top cancer hospitals in the world. On the left, that's him leaning on the railing on the right, and his wife, Bertha, is in the middle there. They also studied in Paris. She was an anesthesiologist. And on the right is an org chart. Now we have hand drawings of his vision of the MD Anderson org chart. And this is only a sample of what that looks, I mean, it's scribbled on notebook paper on how he envisioned the different departments of MD Anderson will work together. The E.W. Bertner MD papers is, Dr. Bertner is known as the father of the TMC, and his papers have both professional and personal materials. Letters such as that on the left document the early development of the TMC, and the correspondence is typed by his secretary, and he wrote in pen his replies. It also shows him in uniform around 1918, and also with his niece on horseback. And earlier during the film, the video clip, you heard him speak on a radio program on KPRC. So the Philip Hench MD papers, he's our only Nobel Prize winner in the collection so far. He developed the use of cortisone as a pain reliever. And you can see him fake injecting the photographer in the image below. We also, it's a varied materials in this collection. We even have a Soviet space poster that was folded up in a box, and I found it when I was arranging this collection. And it is almost 200 boxes, and I believe it was a third of his papers. He was never at the TMC. He was at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, but his son gave us a third of his papers. I still need to research what that was all about. But we have a Nobel Prize winner. That's cool. And finally, we have the TMC records and photograph collection. These are two different collections. Both document the development and history of the TMC as well as the library itself. On the left, the land where the library sits today, and it was going to be built in 1947. And on the right, an architectural drawing of a proposed addition to the library building in 1966. And I believe that huge building is sticking off the back of the old building. You might recognize the front of the building there. So we have a complete listing of our collections online. It is completely searchable on our collection site, and the majority of the collections have inventories available. Our digital collection is growing with photographs, publications, and born digital documents. In addition to in-person access, we provide remote access services such as reference assistance, photocopying, digitization and duplication, and permission to publish. We also have born digital services where we can copy, convert files from obsolete digital media formats like floppy diskettes. So we have two sites, the collection site, which is archives.library.tmc.edu. That's where you can search all of our collections. And our main site, where you can contact us through the library.tmc.edu/McGovern. You can get to either one from either one. Just a brief discussion on the donation process, and we're always wanting to acquire new materials. The history of the TMC does not stop. So the basic process is you contact us at the McGovern Center. We'll consult with you to determine what materials fit our collection policy. And we'll complete the deed of gift. This document transfers the rights and preservation responsibilities of the materials to the McGovern Historical Center. And then finally, the materials can be delivered to the archive in person or shipped. And in some cases, we can go pick them up if they're the location and the size of the collection we're able to get there and load up a van basically. So, and that's about it. I'd like to thank Matt Richardson, who also helped me with this presentation. And there's our contact information. Any questions?